This is the 51 Assassin, a proper gravel bike. We have gone for those Industry 9 AR 40 wheels that you saw from a previous video, and look at that, proper 45C wide Pirelli tyres. It's almost mountain biking. We've also got this funky Vecnum stem with like suspension in it. Now we've built this with the SRAM 4 group set, a bit of a mashup between some of the new stuff and the old stuff. Zitto cassette, Explorer mech, 40-tooth chainrings. We've got some hills to do in here, and then a full ergon finishing kit. So the saddle and the bar tape all from ergon. And crucially, we've got SRAM rival shifters, the cheapest way of getting these fantastic lever ergonomics. So good for gravel. Finish up with some time pedals and a Wahoo Element Roam. We're ready to go, but this bike has not been built for this princess gravel. We need to go and find something a bit chunkier. Yes, but is it actually any good? Well, if you've been following the channel, you'll know about the 51 Seeker, and I was blown away by the quality of that. Now this is the gravel bike. You can feel it's really robust, and the quality is definitely all there, as you can expect. Check out these bearing seats, absolutely perfect. We're actually going to be fitting a stainless steel bearing, but look, not the slightest bit of wobble. And then the bottom bracket area, this is a T47 bottom bracket, so it's not T47 internal, just 68 millimeters wide here. Now the reason that they've done that is because these are going to be external cups. So believe it or not, you can actually get a 1x setup on here, but you can also get a 2x setup on here on a 3450, so traditional road gearing. And the reason that's interesting, because you've still got this tyre clearance for 47 millimeter tyres. So for that, they almost need to slim this down to make room for those massive chain rings. Anyway, you can see how clean this is, but the only way you can really check is to actually screw a bottom bracket in. Look at that. Oh yes. And it's faced so that not a single part of that is touching paintwork. That is about as perfect as you can get. Now, what I do like is the bottom bracket, as well as being perfect, it's actually one piece aluminium tube that then had some sections hoveled out. So the alignment's going to be sorted, because this was at one point a complete aluminium tube they bonded in. All they've done is done these cutouts big enough to actually get some cable through. Whereas some other frames, especially the 51 Seeker, they're just independent left and right, and you potentially have some alignment issues. Front mech mount is a detachable one. You can take that off, and you've actually got in here a little cover as well. So if you do take it off, it still looks nice and smart. And then all of these areas here are absolutely perfect. And that's important because with all the adjustable geometry stuff I'm going to show you later, this needs to be, you know, really nice flush. You can't afford to have any paintwork overspray or any flash-ins or any high spots. That needs to be working perfectly. Fork is perfect, as you can imagine. Look at this massive area, completely clear of any paintwork at all. And inside here, where this flip chip is going to sit, and the actual brake mounts, they look pretty standard, but you've also got another adapter here. So if you are changing the geometry, you've got another adapter there to make sure the brake caliper is always in position. Now, interestingly, this is all like external cables. Well, they're internal into the fork, but then external to the handlebars. And then, yeah, the fork, as you can imagine, completely perfect. And that bearing seat, not even the slightest bit of wobble or movement. That is just nice. Right, let's get the boroscope out, take a look inside. So I'm going to go in through these cable exit ports to start with. And let's take a look down here. Oh my God, look how clean that is. That is absolutely immaculate. I'm gonna try and go slowly so you guys can appreciate that. Let's just give that a little, yep, even reinforced as well. Look, a little plate of reinforcement around where those riv nuts are attached. Very nice. And that weird looking object you can see just here is actually the frame protection. So it's not just stuck on, it's actually sort of bolted on, and it's got some retaining lugs as well. That is nice. If you're going to put some frame protection on there, at least make it robust enough to stay put. Top tube, there are our frame bags. Again, look at that massive amount of reinforcement around those. Clean as a whistle in there, beautiful. Okay, I want to have a look down our chainstays and see where that join mark is. A very big chunk of glue there. Now on a road bike, you know, really lightweight road bike, I'll be criticising that because that's just adding excess weight to your frame. I don't think that matters so much on a frame covered in frame mount bolts. See, in fact, this is actually the little bit of frame detritus that I talk about. So sometimes you can see little bits of bags left over from the mold. I might see if I can fish that out and show you guys. Okay, before we try and do that, quick look at the fork. There we go, you can just see that riv nut at the bottom which makes up the mudguard mount, and actually the little cable threading bits are actually tubed, so you can just run a borescope all the way through there, and there's the cable exit. Managed to just fish that out of there. That's a bit unfortunate. Let's see if that's all it was. Oh yeah, a little bit of stuff there. Yep, and we're through. Cool, problem solved, but I know that the guys at 51 Bikes will be kicking themselves when they see that. Sorry guys, one more thing to check. Look at this, isn't it great? Stopped here because this frame has so many features. I don't actually know where to begin. Tell you what, let's start down here. First of all, we've got these little mounts here, so we can put a rack on it as well. And there's 2 bolts up here, and it actually comes with a little bridge. So if you want to fit a proper mudguard, you can do that with a proper metal bridge and get a little trail fin rack on there or something. You've also got a front mech mount, and also you've got a cable exit point as well, so you can actually run this completely mechanical, and a mechanical exit point there. Talking of which, down here at the front, love it or hate it, have all these exit points here, so we can have front and rear gears all mechanical, and you've also got an extra port there as well for a dropper post. And I think that still leaves one more port. Oh, that must be for rear light, because you can actually get a dynamo on here. So inside the fork there's actually a cable port, so you can run a cable through. That'll make sense. You can now run that cable through to the back and put a little dynamo powered rear light on there as well. Well, great idea. Also, big bolt here for a decent front mudguard. They really have thought of everything. The bottle cages, there are 3 mounting options here for a popper bottle cage mount. You can see I've got the Arundel adjustable thing, so you can get a whole bottle of wine in there, or you can get your toolkit and properly crank it down so you're not going to lose it. Love that. And adjustable geometry, so you can adjust the length of the chainstays and you can adjust the trail. So the idea is, that's the axle side. This sits like this, and this can slide forward and backwards. You have 3 positions with 5mm increments, and you set it in place with one of these bits. So the central one, you've got to screw either side. That makes complete sense. That's sort of our neutral position, if you like. But then if you want to go, hey, I want to go a little bit longer, I'm going to get a little bit gnarlier, then you can put this into the backward position. So that way you have your 2 mounting holes here. And this way you've increased your wheelbase, or you can flip that around. So your 2 holes are now at the back, and you move all this forward, and you're now in your shortest wheelbase. Now you can still do that and maintain your 47mm tyre clearance and 650B tyres no matter which position you choose. It's not dependent on that. On the rear brake, exactly the same sort of setup, but just a little bit trickier. So you've got this big section here where your flat mount caliper is going to stay. So that stays relative to your brakes. And then you have the same idea with a neutral chip, and then you have an offset chip by 5mm that you have in either one rotation or the other. So you get 3 positions, a neutral, a short and a long, probably the best way of thinking about it. On the fork, it's a little bit confusing if you look at the geometry charts, because high, low position, offsets, etc. haven't really tidied that up. I've just been talking to them to see if they can just clarify it. So if you are setting it up yourself, you don't need like degree and bicycle geometry to figure it out. But essentially you have a 45mm fork offset and a 53mm offset, of which they refer to as a high or a low position. So reducing the fork offset will increase the trail and therefore improve the straight line stability or rolling over rocks, that sort of thing. Whereas if you want to tighten up the steering, you would put a bigger fork offset and therefore reduce the trail measurement, and therefore you get a better handling, well, a sharper handling bike, should I say. Better is dependent on the terrain that you're riding on. Let's talk about T47. This is the Chris King standard. Sometimes you've seen it on the channel before in the internal version. This is the external version, the one that Chris King originally conceptualized. And we've got two bottom bracket options here. We either have the one that we probably use most often here in the shop, which is the Piccone one, and it looks like it's got a really weird tool, but it isn't. It's actually a very standard tool. It's just got less splines on here. The other thing I love about these is that you get a really good precision fit between those two halves. So once this is in your bike, pretty got a waterproof unit, but it's not always the best for really abusive gravel, if you like, because we're just going to be out there in all sorts of weather. This is going to be a machine that we ride through really shitty weather. Love it. Now, in all seriousness, if this is the sort of thing that you encounter on your ride, your bearings are going to be getting an absolute hammering. So it's worth investing in some decent like stainless steel bearings that just don't rust as easily. This one is from Enduro. This is their T47 unit. Just the 440C ones, not the XD15. They're even more bomb-proof. Spinning beautifully, look at that. We've also got stainless steel headset bearing here and across the top here, which means you can ride stuff like this all day, every day, with a bit more confidence that your bike's gonna last. Welcome to the top of Beast High Road. Down there is Town of Kendal and Mapdeck Cycle Works. But while we're up here, I suppose we'd better actually review this bike. I've talked you through all the features, but how does it ride? Kind of, as you expect, a bit like a Gary Fisher mountain bike from the 90s. Slightly slack head angle. Remember when we first started to introduce 29er wheels? Maybe that was the early 2000s. Anyway, that tracks over this chunky gravel pretty well. Anyway, I've got this in the smallest fork offset, which means that I get the most amount of trail, and that has been really playing out when I've been hitting these sort of chunkier gravel features and transitioning between the sort of grassy features and gravel features. Just helps the front wheel track over those sort of features. It's been brilliant. Got some pretty wide handlebars on here, so that's definitely helped with sort of the suspension in my arms, if you like. Counterintuitive to how you ride on road, but off-road I like having this sort of movement in my upper body. A bit more of an upper body workout, but when you're riding this sort of stuff, feels great to me. And also coming down this, it's going to feel great having a bit of extra width up there. Now, I do think that this stem is too long for this bike. The geometry is set up having a significantly shorter stem, and with all this parallelogram assembly, we're kind of restricted as to how short it can be. I think I'm going to re-review this later. Subscribe to the channel for that review. I'm going to probably put like a 70 something mil stem on there and try it that completely rigid. I think that's probably how I prefer to run it. Running this slammed, absolutely fine. It's quite a high stack anyway, so I've not had any sort of problems with it being too much of a saddle to bar drop. Feels great to me. And then loads and loads of wheelbase on this. It's actually a really long, it's well over a metre long wheelbase. Absolutely no toe strike on that at all. Feels great. So it just feels, when it's off-road, just feels like a really sturdy bike. And I can imagine doing a really big adventure on this, strapping some bags to it and not worrying whether I'm tired, fatigued, and then hitting terrain like this. I think this is the sort of bike that'll have your back. I can definitely see from all those features, the geometry, everything, this is a bike built for adventure. So let's go have one.